podcast. I am your host, Mac, and this is episode 51, Relapse, Recovery, and Renewal. And before we hop into the topic, just a little bit of housekeeping because it's been a little bit of a gap between the podcasts. My last podcast was episode 50 with Matt Dobschutz, host of the Porn Free Radio podcast. He was the guy that really got me started with recovery. I started listening to his podcast a little over 7 years ago, and it was an honor to talk to him. And this is my next podcast in October, so it's been a little bit of time. So I wanted to let you know first, I'm heading in my RV. I'm traveling. If you don't know already, I've been working and living out of a Class C motorhome, towing my Jeep Wrangler around. I've been doing this lifestyle for 2.5 years because I work remotely, so I'm able to travel around the states, and my home state's Colorado, but I've been out of Colorado since late July, and I embarked on a journey down to Texas, Louisiana, and then going through Mississippi, Alabama, all the way to Florida, where I was there for more than a month with one of my best buddies. And he just bought a fishing boat a couple months ago. And every day I'm pretty much seeing fishing videos from him and getting a little bit jealous. Normally, when we've done fishing trips before, we normally try to go once or twice a year where we'll fly down, whoever can fly down. Typically, it's me and my two best buds are going down there and we're fishing. Normally, we go down to the Florida Keys, but now my buddy's got a fishing boat, knows how to do it. So we were just fishing straight from his condo out in the Atlantic, and what a great time that was. Caught a sailfish my first night, got that on the boat, biggest fish ever I've caught, and that was just surreal itself. And then tons of fish since, great eating, and was able to get to know his girlfriend a lot better, which was great. And they go to church every Sunday, so I was able to go to church with them while I was down there and really enjoyed that church and felt like a lot of those services were really hitting me at the right time. So I've been on the road. I think I've mentioned this before in some of my writings with Substack, but I was in a relationship for a year and a half, and that ended mid-July. And yeah, that was definitely a big life change that happened that really spurred on this road trip, as you will. It's funny. My dad, I think, one time was like, "Where's your next adventure?" And he's like, "Well, it's kind of just how your life is right now. It's just traveling and working and traveling and working." So it's got its pros and cons, but all in all, it's been great just to get back on the road again and to, yeah, just have those moments of solitude, but also have moments with dear friends. But getting to the point of the podcast, it's about relapse, it's about recovery, and it's about renewal. So a big thing that I think has been a big point and goal and reason why I do my podcast and why I write on Substack is to get to the heart of the matter, to be honest, to be vulnerable about porn's relationship in my life. So hopefully that can shed some light on perhaps your relationship with porn or somebody that you know. And a big part of recovery and being in recovery is honesty and truth. And I did have relapses on the road. 25 days now removed from that. But I did have a string of relapses while I was traveling through Louisiana, and then initially when I got to Florida. And I wanted just to unpack it. I wanted to talk through it. I think this has been something I've been thinking about, obviously, for a while. Not even when the relapses happen, about, hey, what are my next steps here? How do I talk about this? But also, I think leading up to it, I was in this, I would say, purgatory a little bit in my mind of trying to find a subject to talk about. I was in this purgatory in my mind a little bit of trying to figure out, hey, I just interviewed episode 50, this person I look up to that's been doing a porn free podcast, I think for over a decade for sure. And I was really struggling, I think, after that of, okay, what do I do next? I think I was getting really burnt out in a way because I was writing my weekly newsletter every Monday. And then on Fridays, I've been doing this break or this 52 weeks of freedom every week. And I started to get a little bit behind with that because of travel. July was a crazy month because I think I had two work conferences where I had to fly somewhere, and then actually had an in-person group meeting called the Brush Poppers of 2025. It was actually a group of recovery guys led by Vern Tomke, who I meet with in group every week. And I have been doing that for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. I've been working with Vern individually and in groups now. Let's see, since for a few years now. He's a great guy. His podcast is finding traction and pastors on porn. But he actually organized a group meeting down in Reno, Nevada. It's hosted by guys named Jim and Eric down there in Reno on Jim's property, which was beautiful in Reno. There's some beautiful parts of Reno, a great view of the mountains. Uh, and basically, we just had a guys' retreat. All of us were Christian men too. So there's definitely a lot of spirituality there, discussions about faith. But it was the guys that I talked to virtually, pretty much all of them every Thursday, and we were actually able to meet each other in person. So that was another thing that I went out to and spent time doing. So July was just a crazy month, and then had the breakup too. So it just felt like things were just super busy. I was getting, I think I was getting a lot in my head and very, just felt very like I was in a pressure cooker almost because trying to balance, I think sometimes a full-time job and balancing expectations of, hey, I'm 34. What am I doing with my life? Being divorced and then now ending this relationship. I think there was a lot of negative self-talk that I had that was building up. And then getting back on the road again. And I think just all the complexity that happens with that. So I think for me, at least, when I was on the road, I basically started my road trip up very quickly and got on the road right away. So I got on the road very quickly. I was making it to this event that I really wanted to go see in Texas, and it was really last minute. So there was just a lot, I think, of a build up for me, a lot of things that I wasn't really handling to the best of my ability. I felt very unbalanced mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just felt out of balance and almost felt like I was just having a hard time keeping my feet under me because of all this change, all this uncertainty. And while on the road, started drinking again alcohol, which I was sober for 7 months, doing sobriety with my little sister to walk with her. And I think for me, like alcohol definitely was a part of my life in college, just drinking like a college kid. And then after that's been a social thing. But definitely alcohol does play a role in my sobriety with porn and has at times to where if I drinking a lot and then I wake up the next day really hungover, not feeling great, that definitely puts me more in the red zone to where it's more of a temptation, more of my defenses are down. And it was interesting because as I was going to New Orleans actually for the first time, that was something I was checking in with my recovery group and my little brother who I do daily check-ins with, just saying, hey, I got to make sure I'm like watching my drinking and like getting good sleep. And I was doing a good job of that. And then I just had this day on, I had this day on Friday, or let's see, it was, yeah, I think Saturday during the day, I had a great time walking around and I think just exploring the city, seeing the sights. There was some really cool historical stuff that I really liked, and there was this like museum. It's not called a museum, but it's got a bunch of artwork and statues and all that. And that was great. And then there's a Catholic cathedral there that I was able to check out. That was super cool. But I think I let the day keep going to where I started to drink. And then I was really battling with myself. Hey, do I stay out or do I go home? I ended up staying out and just drinking too much to where I got home really, really late. And definitely, if you've never been to Bourbon Street, there's a lot of just temptations out there. And I think that definitely, I think, geared me up to feel more of that temptation when I got back home. And I didn't relapse that night, but then the next day on Sunday, I just had this built up, almost this feeling exhausted and a built up resentment, I think, to myself for really just wasting Sunday because I really wanted to go back and see more of the town and see more stuff, but I didn't because I slept in really late because I stayed up really late. And I think the edging behavior that was leading up to the relapse, I let more of my guards down and I was in this state to where I just I just gave into it. And I think the pressure when I look back on it, a lot of the pressure I was putting on myself was almost like the fear of having a relapse and what that would do to my voice of being a porn free millennial publicly, and this fear of I can't I can't make any mistakes, and I have to be a good example for everybody, and I have to uh I have to be that one person that people can look up to, that man, that guy's been porn free like forever. And I was reaching 2 years of sobriety at that point, and I think I just like let a lot of that get to my head, and I let a lot of uh, doubt and fear and anxiety get to me. And then I also was lowering my barriers and putting myself in a very unsafe position for my sobriety. And it's basically like using the fishing metaphor of like going fishing in Florida is like just going right into the storm and going in the storm drunk, like going in the storm with basically your hands tied behind your back to where really the only outcome you're putting yourself in is pretty much destruction unless you get lucky, unless you white knuckle your way through it. And yeah, so I had a relapse then, and then it was like checking it in right away with my little brother. I checked it in with my group as well, my Thursday group, and also checked it in with my church guys too. But then it felt like the layers of that I built up for such a long time, the layers of strength and resilience and purpose, those were reduced down because of the recent relapse. So I did relapse multiple times after that. And I think what I wanted to share this out of that is I'm talking about it now, right? So I'm being honest and I'm sharing it because I think that's important for everybody because we've all gone through relapses. And maybe if you're listening, you're still going through relapses and you're struggling to find hope in that. And you're struggling to find out, hey, what's going to change? Well, I think the most important thing is being honest about it and being vulnerable. And you don't have to be like me and share this publicly for anybody to listen to. But I think it does start with us and being honest with ourselves. Because I think when it was happening and leading up to it, I was like in disbelief. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm falling back into this thing that I write about, that I talk about, that I'm against, that I have so many reasons why I should and need to be porn free, right? And now I find myself coming back to it. And I think when I'm going to write about this as well on my Substack, there's definitely a lot of uh, passages from the Bible that I've listened to in sermons as well as just read and thought about that really apply. A lot of them come from Romans and what what is talked about there. I think with we know what the sin is, but we go back to it. In our nature, we're flawed as humans. We can't be perfect, right? But at the same time, there is hope. There is purpose in this. There is purpose in the relapse. I think it's very clarifying. It almost wakes us up to really what we were blinding ourselves to, and what we were starting to look away from or disregard as being issues. So I wanted to share that, and I've been really thinking about this podcast for a while, and it's just been really hard to just like sit down and like record this over video. So that's why I'm just doing it as I'm driving, because I think a lot of my thoughts and a lot of conversations with myself do happen while I'm driving, because I've been driving across the country. So there's a lot of time, I think, to think and to think it out. And I think what I've just come to is I just want to get this out, and for it to be raw and to talk about it, versus trying to have like this perfect podcast and have all these points and everything like that. I'm going to try my best to get to the ones that I've been thinking about, but I also just want just to be vulnerable, and hopefully something that can help you in your time. And if you've been sober for a while, hopefully it's a good wake up call, uh, to stay on the course, to stay going north on things. But if you do stumble, right, if you do relapse, if you do make mistakes, if you do have slips, things that don't sit right with you, I think that's a part of the human process. It's a part of us developing and becoming better people. And I think the important thing too with recovery is that it's not the same as sobriety. I think recovery overall is the change in mindset, the the change in the purpose and your focus, and how you start to develop your identity. And I think when I look back at myself before 7 years ago, there's been so much growth as a person, with maturity, with understanding, with empathy, with being more courageous, being more honest, and I think also just being more focused on like what the big picture is in life. And I think sometimes with porn, it pulls us so much away from what's in front of us, but also like how we view ourselves and who we're becoming. And it can be a really dark picture. And I definitely experienced a lot of that when I was going through my relapses recently. It was very depressing. It was really dark. I didn't really feel like going outside or being around people. Felt like a fraud. Felt like just who the heck's going to want to listen to this guy anymore? How can I even write about this? How can I even talk about this anymore? And I think a lot of those thoughts, those are what can keep the relapse cycle going, and what can keep it continuing. And it can get into a perpetual cycle if we stick in that mindset. And I think recovery comes from changing that mindset and getting back on our feet as much as possible. And I think over the years, for sure, significantly, the amount of relapses I've had in a year have reduced significantly. Also, the frequency of them, and just being able to get back on track and get refocused and get back into the light, back into the truth. And I think as I started to connect with my buddy down in Florida, go to services, and become humble in front of God and express that humility, both privately and I think publicly, just through connecting with other people and community, that I think really helped get me back into that mindset of feeling confident again, feeling confident to talk about this and to be vulnerable, to share. I think my little brother, he's amazing. We've done two podcasts together. I'd like to get him on again soon. But he said something that really, I think, hit home. Was he was just saying, and I think this had to do with some ancient tribes or or something of that nature, that culture, but how to share not just the good things, but bad things, like to share that openly with the tribe, with the group, so that that can be a benefit of others. And I think that also applies clearly to the Bible. All of the all of the people in the Bible that we focus on, right? They all made critical errors, errors that you would think would be disqualifying from being a being somebody that shares the word of Christ, and that that is a good messenger. And really the only one, right, is Jesus Christ, that did not have sin and that died for our sins. And I think getting back into church, because that was definitely a struggle for me, I think when I left, was just reconnecting with church, because I was a part of my local church for a bit when I was in Colorado, and then I was a greeter, but going to church regularly was great. And then getting back on the road again, I disconnected from that. I stopped listening to the church podcasts. I think I did one call with my Bible study guys, and I think we had a little bit of a break with the summer. And yeah, I disconnected myself, I think, from that faith, because I think there was that shame and that fear of starting to fall into bad habits, and I think starting to hand over control to things that put me out of control, like drinking, for instance, and being in like an altered state of mind, to in some ways medicate these these feelings, these deep feelings that I had. I think that carried over from the divorce, and I think in a lot of ways I still have a lot of that I'm still healing from with the divorce, is those feelings of shame and feeling like I failed, and a lot of that being tied to porn. And I think that can be a very defeating thing, if I continue to believe that, because it's not true. It's not true, because there's redemption and there's forgiveness and grace. I think when we're honest and we repent to that and we make amends. So that's what I wanted to do in this podcast, is talk about the relapse, and then talk about recovery, and then talk about renewal. So I think with the recovery aspect of it, I think things that have been great, even with the relapse, like tools that I've used, definitely accountability. So that's number one, or one of them, is my daily check-ins with my little brother that we've been doing since basically 2023, February 2023. We've basically been talking every day through voice memos, and some exceptions of trips and all that stuff. But we do a fast check-in formula. So it's an acronym, and it was developed for sex addicts initially. I learned it from Matt Dobshoots at Porn Free Radio, but basically FAST stands for feelings, activities, and recovery, which are 4 quadrants. So that's, how are you doing spiritually? How are you doing physically? How are you doing in your relationships? And how are you doing with your passions? And then you have sobriety or slips. So that's typically where you're checking in, where you're at with your sobriety. And we typically use like green, yellow, red. So green is you're doing really well, and you're handling things, you're going through your day, and you're not having those massive urges, and you're not, or you might have urges or temptations, but you're able to work through those in a healthy manner. Yellow is when you're starting to slip and edge. So that's when you're in that caution zone, so to speak. Like there could be something that triggered you online or in person. Maybe it's someone attractive that you lingered on too long, and you start to get those preoccupied thoughts of potentially going back to porn. And then red for me is viewing pornography, right? Either through images or video, and masturbating. That's like red for me. And so that's slip sobriety. And then there's 2 T's. So the first T is threats to your sobriety. So with the threats allows you to see where you're at today, but also think ahead of what could be threats. I think for me, a lot of the times, a big threat to me was if I didn't get a lot of sleep. That seems to be my biggest one. And that was something too I was really struggling with for a while. I think a lot of that had to do with stress. I think a lot of it had to do with just balancing so many things and just not really prioritizing well or just running out of the time in the day. And I think that was a big threat to me because I oftentimes would sacrifice my sleep to just try to get the things done I wanted to get done instead of getting good sleep so that I really would be more in a good mental capacity and physical capacity to get the things done that I want to get done. But there could be a myriad of threats. I think those come as you check in with your partner and you get to know each other more. Like for me, I'm with my little brother, so we know each other really well, but we've gotten to know each other a lot better in our relationship through our fast check-ins. And you start to pick up, I think, on what are your like critical threats? Like what are things that you as a person, when you're honest with yourself, like what are things that trigger you to give into that temptation or to really get that urge to want to go back to it? Like what are the things that are threats there? And other examples could be like for me, if I drink too much and I don't get a lot of sleep and I feel hungover, that could be another threat. Or if I'm just feeling very negative and I'm beating myself up and in a lot of shame, that could be another threat there. So from threats, the last T is tools. So what tools are you going to use to combat those threats, right? So if I'm not getting a lot of sleep, what are things that I can do so that I do get good sleep? Or if it's drinking, if I still like want to have a drink, what do I do so that I don't drink too much, that I don't wake up with a hangover? That's cutting it back. It's getting to bed earlier, drinking a lot of water, just getting rest. Where if I still like want to enjoy a drink socially, I can, but I need to know better of what can lead into that relapse, right? And those are tools. Other things that I've done since the relapses, at the behest of Vern, was ordered some lock boxes for my phone and for my iPad. Those have been really great. They're really cool. I'll see if I can link those in the podcast episode description in the notes. But it's really cool. Order them off Amazon, really not that expensive. And basically, you can charge them with the USB cable and plug in really like what time you want it to lock for. And then it'll just unlock after that time. So I've been using that at night and putting my phone in there, like when I'm ready to go to bed. I'll put on a podcast or a book on tape and I'll plug in the time. And then when I wake up, then I can access it again. And with the iPad, same thing. Like if I just know I'm not going to use it at all to like watch a movie, then I'm just going to put it away because I really don't need it for much else than that. So those are some tools there. And then I also, re-ups, with the settings and everything on Ever Accountable, which is an app that I use. And that one actually have a 20% discount for yearly membership if you're interested. And I also interviewed the CEO, Tyler Patterson, in my episode a few episodes ago. And we had a great conversation. Really enjoyed getting to meet him and know him over Zoom and get to work with some of his team as well. Julia has been awesome to work with. And that's just another way to improve accountability. And I also downloaded another one, which was the initial one I used called Accountable to You. I can put that link in the description too. And that one's really like, it will ping your accountability partner right away if you type in certain things. And I'm like, that's going to help out a lot. Because when I was relapsing, it was really just going to whatever was novel in my head from the past and exhausting it. And it was exhausting doing that and just was soul sucking doing that. But that's just another app that I downloaded. And really, since doing all of that, that's really helped jumpstart my sobriety. I remember Another thing my little brother said was you need some rocket fuel to get you out of this spot. I think especially when I mean, really in any kind of stage of relapse, but I know for me, just being sober for so long, being in a relationship where I didn't look at any porn, my previous one that just ended, I think it just really hit me in a different way and like a Mack truck, and no pun intended there. And yeah, I really needed some rocket fuel to get me out. So I think that's something important to remember and to reiterate is just if you're in this place where you feel stuck, you got to find some sort of rocket fuel to boost you out of there. And sometimes that is getting an accountability software. Definitely recommend at least getting an accountability partner or joining a group, something there where you can talk to somebody about it that isn't going to judge you, that might be a little bit ahead of you, typically helps. And just being able to do that, or just to talk to somebody that you trust, or somebody in your church, or a close friend, family member, somebody that really can help jumpstart things is when you let somebody in and you're vulnerable and you share with them. Because I think what you'll find uh, with the people that love you and the people that are on this road too in good faith, they're gonna treat you with love. They're gonna treat you with compassion. And I think that's typically when we're stuck in this cycle of relapse, that's always that voice that's telling us like nobody's gonna love you. Nobody's gonna love you after finding out what you did. And no one's gonna accept you and you should just keep this a secret. And it's just bullshit. Like this is bullshit. Uh, it doesn't make it easy. It's not going to be easy sharing these things, right? Especially if you're in a relationship, you're married. Yeah, like that's tough. It's not easy. It sucks. But a part of my podcast, why I started, was I went through a divorce of a 5-year marriage because I wasn't honest about it right away, and it caused a lot of damage. It caused a lot of trust issues, caused a lot of intimacy issues. Like basically anything that you could think that could get blown up was blown up. And a lot of it came from not being honest and hiding. And a lot of that came out of shame. A lot of that came out of guilt. A lot of that came from believing the lies and not believing the truth. And the truth is that I think when we're honest and we see what we're doing isn't good, it's not good for us, it's not good for other people in our lives, but the industry in general as well. I think that's when we will get that forgiveness, or we at least will be given that grace or space to be able to work on ourselves and be able to fix this brokenness within us. Right? It gives us that ability. And I think for me as a Christian, when it comes to recovery, I think that was something that was really missing in a lot of ways that I wasn't really connecting the dots fully to is, what is my why? Why do I want to live porn free? And I think for a while, like post divorce, a lot of it came from being free and not being a slave to this vampire, and to be a good example and to help other people, which are still my whys. But I think the ultimate why, and really what's helped provide me that rocket fuel and get me back on track, is to glorify Jesus Christ and to follow him and to do my best to live by his teachings and his example, and to follow the Bible, follow the teachings, follow the word, the truth, the light, right? And I think I've done that in a lot of ways, but I also haven't done that in a lot of ways. And I think reconnecting to that over the past few weeks has been just it's been like a burden's been lifted off of me in a way, because it's that knowledge that when I call on Christ's name and I accept him in my heart, I am forgiven, and that he does love me. Even though I a lot of times don't love myself, or I don't forgive myself, to know that he has forgiven me and that he sacrificed himself and died on the cross for my sins. Like that is a game changer. And hopefully that's a game changer for you listening to this. I know not everyone listening to this might be Christian or religious, but I'm just sharing my personal journey, right? That's a big part of what my podcast is. A lot of it's my personal journey and perspectives and how those are evolving, right? So that can help you in your journey. So that you can go back to my first podcast and you can listen to that. You can listen to this one and say, hey, everywhere in between, what evolution has Matt gone through? And hopefully that's something that helps you. It helps guide you in your recovery journey, and that you can take things from mine and apply it to your life. And maybe there's some things that you don't take. That's fine. But I'm not letting this relapse get me down. It's not going to stop anything that I'm doing, because I do think it's important to stay on this path and to stay in recovery. And part of that, yeah, is being honest when we do slip, when we do relapse, when we do fall. It's to confide in others and to be honest and to stay connected, stay in community. I think that's how we all get through this at the end of the day, is through community, through connection, through honesty. And I think that's just really the last part that I wanted to get to is renewal. So I think when relapse happens, that doesn't knock you out of recovery. It's really how you respond to that, right? And how you get back on track. That's really what defines it. But I think a big part of what happens when you're in recovery and when you have a relapse, there is a renewal that happens. I think relapses have that funny way, I think, of clarity and bringing things to light. Like I was talking about earlier, things that were blind spots or things that weren't blind spots, but things like I began to maybe dismiss as, hey, that's not that big of a deal, or, I can go out and have a bunch of drinks and be fine. These things that I think we kind of slip back into. And I think part of it is like that old identity that we have where we're really broken is trying to hold on for dear life. Because in some ways, like, that's like how we comforted ourselves for a while. I mean, I know for me, starting at the age of 10, that was like the main thing that I was using to comfort myself and to numb and to escape was going to porn. And 20 years of that, yeah, it does a number on I think your nervous system and your mind and your body, how you react to things. And we can't discount that, right? Doesn't mean that we're a slave to it or that we have to give into it, but we can't overlook it or dismiss it or underestimate it, because I think when things happen, especially things unexpected or maybe things that like tough decisions, like the breakup for me, like it was a kind of like a pressure cooker thing. It was like go one way or the other, right? And it was a lot of pressure I was putting on myself. And now I can look back at that time and say, okay, well, hey, get yourself ready if things come up like that again, or if you're feeling that way again, find some healthy outlets. And I think the renewal part really is just, just looking at myself today and saying, okay, how can I move forward renewed? How can I move forward a better version of myself to where my identity is evolving, and it's not regressing, but it's evolving into a person that is following Christ with a happy heart, that is ready to embrace whatever suffering might happen and turn it into something that glorifies God, something that is positive, something that can help other people. Rather than taking that suffering and adding to it in the mistaken pursuit of trying to find some sense of peace. And that's really my goal. I think moving forward is to be renewed and to be reinvigorated in writing about this and talking about it, and just being hopefully a helpful light for you as you're listening or as you're reading, as somebody that's flawed, somebody that has made mistakes, still will, but someone that at least is going to be honest about it, is going to be real about it, is going to be vulnerable about it, and not afraid to do that, not afraid to share, not afraid to open up a part of my life so that hopefully it can help you potentially open up a part of your life that could be lurking in the darkness or could be suppressed. And I just really think it's important. It's important to go there. And of course, go there, I think, with healthy guidance, with people that support you, because it can be a really tough road to go. And sometimes we do need that guidance. I know I did. My Christian therapist, my Bible study group, my recovery group, my family, friends, all those people play a role in helping me as I'm going through this stage of life. And I urge you to do the same, whatever that means to you. We're not all so fortunate maybe to have as many close friends or groups, but I think what we control is what our attitude's going to be in any given situation. And how do we move forward with that attitude? How can we shift our attitude if it's in a spot that's negative, or it's a spot that's stuck in shame or guilt, or you're repulsed by yourself and you feel like you can't do anything right? Because all those things, I've been there many times, and I I want to continue to live my life in a way that I can get away from that and that I can move forward quicker if I do fall, if I do make mistakes. And I don't think that will come from just being isolated. And I think that's just one of the the biggest it's probably the biggest weapon that porn has in our lives, is to isolate us from ourselves, from Jesus Christ, from our family, from our friends, from our loved ones, from hope, feeling optimistic, feeling like we have a purpose, like we have passion, that we're confident. All those things, I think, are things that porn seeks to establish in our lives, so that we stay hooked to it, that we stay addicted to it, that we stay that vessel for it to suck on, because really it doesn't exist if we're not consuming it, at least in our lives, right? And hopefully that can spread to more and more people, to where we can all realize collectively together that this is a vampire. It's only gonna it's only gonna steal and kill whatever good there is in our lives. That's how I think about it. And that's not to scare you or to make you feel shame. I think it's just hopefully a wake up call that if this is a problem in your life today, or if it has been, to have those things in your life that are going to renew you and not regress you. So I've been talking long enough. And again, yeah, it took me a while to really get to this place. I definitely needed some time to sit on it. And also, I just had a lot of time in Florida where I was really just out on the ocean fishing a ton and hanging out with one of my best buddies, and also just traveling across these different states and seeing things. So I think that's also played a role. And then going into the fourth quarter with work. So this has been busy, been doing stuff, but I really have just been thinking about this, and I really just wanted to get my words out and to talk about this. And today that just seemed the best to do it while on the road, while heading to Mississippi, which I just entered not too long ago. So, with that being said, everybody, look forward to more episodes to come. Actually, the next episode I'll be recording this weekend, it'll be with Dr. Gregory Borse, who I've had on the show multiple times. We've done some really amazing podcasts together. I think the most popular podcast, the most downloaded one, is our one called Porn is a Vampire. And that was actually last October. It was the first Halloween special episode. And we discussed uh, the concept of a vampire in pop culture and movies and literature. It was me, Dr. Boris, and his dear friend, Kale Zeldin, who also has a Substack called The Underneath. And I think it's also a YouTube channel. So definitely follow him. He's super smart and knows what he's talking about with things. He's in education field as well. But I'm actually going to be I'm heading to Gregory Borse's home. where him and his wife will be hosting me for the weekend. So it's really cool. Someone that I met online over X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and someone I've podcasted with multiple times. I'm actually going to go meet him in the flesh, and we're going to record our next Halloween episode, which I'm going to leave a cliffhanger. I'm not going to tell you what movie we're talking about. Maybe if you're listening to this and you're curious, you can leave in the comments what your guess is. But it's a very famous horror movie in culture. May or may not be black and white, but very influential film. And Dr. Boris he teaches film in college, among other things. And this film is, I think, one of the ones that he probably knows more about than anybody. So it's going to be really fun to talk to him about this film and really how it weaves into porn in modern day culture, and what we can take from the film and what can apply it to porn today. So I'm incredibly excited about that. And just to meet him in person is going to be really cool. And it'll be my first time going into Arkansas as well, which I'm excited for. So with that being said, I really appreciate you listening to me. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And I look forward to writing more and at my own pace too. I think that's going to be something I'm going to figure out as I go, is maybe at this time, not as bristling of a pace. We'll see. But I want to continue writing about these concepts, about my experiences. Also continue having different guests on. I think those episodes, I'm going to aim to have those more be video. I think some of these podcasts where it's just me, I might just do audio, because sometimes it's just a lot just to edit all this stuff. And right now, I just really just want to get my message out and to speak from the heart. Not like I haven't, but I think sometimes when it comes to video and all that stuff, it just feels like it just takes a lot away from it sometimes, with the work that goes into like editing it and all this stuff, to where really I just wanted to get this one out and share with you. So with that being said, if you go through a relapse, if you are going through one, or if you haven't in a while, I would just say that be in recovery still and be renewed. Renew yourself every day. For me, that's following Jesus Christ and talking to him, praying, listening. Hey, how can I glorify him today? How can I follow the teachings of Christ today? How can I better myself today? How can I help others today? How can I be a service to others? How can I spread the good news? How can I be a good example? All these things are things I'm going to keep continuing to focus on each day as I go through my journey. And I think for you, I just challenge you to find what is that thing for you that renews you, and how can you focus on a daily basis, to where you can end your day feeling renewed. And if you have those moments where you do fail, how can you get back on track to get back to being in that renewed state? So that being said, everybody, much love, break free, stay free, be free, keep fighting the good fight. Love you guys. Bye.